ourselves. I can go ahead and go first. My name is Maya Williams. I'm one of the directors of the Indianapolis chapter. I currently work at Kenzie Academy and I teach UX design to high school juniors and seniors at Indianapolis Public Schools, specifically George Washington High School. So it's a really cool thing. And I'm happy that you all have come here today. So I'll turn it over to Fatima.
I'm Fatima, and I'm a co-director of Women Who Code Indianapolis as well. And I'm currently manager of solution architects here in Indianapolis at LEV. I'll pass it on to Megan.
Hi guys, my name is Megan Stevens. I am in admissions at Kenzie Academy. I know you saw on the slide, AMP Inc., that is my nonprofit. It is dear to my heart and some of the community involvement work that I do. I'm super excited to have this conversation tonight. I'm super nervous too. I am to make sure we get it right and do this correctly, but I'm happy to be here and thank you for having me. Alicia, it's going your turn next.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. I'm Alicia Kissel. I am also on the admissions team at Kenzie Academy, but lately have been very engaged in our Indianapolis justice efforts. So thank you to Women Who Code Indianapolis for welcoming me here, and to all of you for being present tonight. Looking forward to the conversation.
My name is Alan Grant. I'm a software consultant at Sogeti Capgemini. I have been working in tech for about 7 years and was invited to this panel by Maya. And I'm very excited to have this conversation and see that we all get better and we at least touch 1 or 2 people today. And if we touch more, then that's great. But we also, want to do our part to make a change and see how we can make progress with technology and other coders, developers, startups and tech firms, and just come together and see what we can get out of this.
Well, awesome. Thanks everyone for joining us today. I see some more things in the chat here. People from Las Vegas, Westfield, Maryland, Piero from his basement. Hey, Piero in your basement, Long Island, New York. So thanks again, everyone. So I guess let's just jump into it. I watched too much Philip DeFranco. So I kind of want to start off this conversation with the question of just, how are you? It's been like an interesting / tough 2 weeks for all of us, I'm sure. So like, kind of just want to check in and see how everyone is doing and how have you been dealing with it?
I can start, and then I'll pass it on to Megan, Alicia, or Alan. I would say like it has been, because I manage people at work, so it's been interesting at work, like trying to find ways to give support to my employees to make sure that if they need a time off away from work, they get that time off, because it is important that you have yourself safe from any mental health issues, and also making sure that people are feeling safe at the work environment. And also, like, I've had some conversations recently with close friends and family members that we just started a conversation about race, and it is sometimes hard to have those conversations. Especially when it's like with a close family member, because a lot of time you don't want to disagree with them, especially if they're older than you, but at the same time you don't want to just be quiet and not say anything. So that it has been definitely difficult to figure out ways around how we can all work together and live together, basically. Yeah, I don't know if Megan, Alicia, or Alan, what are you all feeling?
Go ahead, Alan. Go ahead. You got it.
The initial shock, I hesitate to say shock. You know, I don't want to ever feel like I'm desensitized by the loss of life at the hands, you know, at the way that George Floyd lost his life. I don't ever want to be, you know, normalize that feeling. It has been a very tough couple of weeks at work, and you know, at work has been a little bit of a getaway. It seems like there haven't been many tough conversations, especially being where, you know, everyone is remote and everything. So there's a lot of time spending time with work, spending time with my own personal thoughts. I'm extremely frustrated. I'm extremely exhausted at this. It seems like, you know, this is on repeat and it's consistent, but there's something different. I don't know if it's due to COVID-19. I don't know if it's because we're all at home. I don't know if it's because we've seen these, you know, mass amount of protests and people putting their feet on the ground and doing the work necessary to make sure their voices are heard. But there's something different about it this time. And I'm hoping that, you know, we are making progress and that we continue to move forward. But, you know, it is a continuous fight. You know, there are different things day in and day out, you know, that we deal with. Minorities in the workplace, people of color in the workplace, Black people specifically right now, and for the topic of this forum, in the workplace. And, you know, these are things that we kind of get used to, but it's never something that's very easy to deal with at times. But there's definitely been a pause and trying to gain understanding and trying to figure out, okay, now that this disgust has left my body, my mind, this frustration, what can I do next to amplify voices? What can I do next to amplify the work that's being done in the communities? Where can I use my gifts, my talents to move this thing forward so that, you know, one day there's a world that my children's children can live in, where, you know, things like this don't take weeks of protests and weeks of social media blackouts and weeks of different conversations like that. So I'm hopeful. I'm exhausted, but I'm ready to you know, pull my sleeves up and get to work.
I remember asking this question of our admissions team the Tuesday after, I don't even know what day it was anymore. What day is it? Ever. It's always my question. But I asked on a scale of 1 to 10 how people were feeling, just so that we could honor where they were. And, you know, people have been mourning the loss of life. And some of my colleagues that I still look up to, they shared something really impactful about the fact that I don't have the space to share how I feel right now, because how I feel is incomparable to how our Black family members feel right now. So it's not appropriate to share how I feel, because I don't feel as bad as anyone else might right now. So that is how I feel, ready for action at all times.
I appreciate that, Alicia. I think kind of echo the sentiments that I see in the comments about being exhausted, being frustrated, being discouraged. And at one point I felt numb, and I got mad at myself for feeling numb. And I felt numb because it was like, for a second, I can, you know, list 10 names and start calling out names. You know, I went to a protest here in Indianapolis, and they started naming out, you know, a few minutes of naming out just names over the last decade or so, decade plus, of this continuing to happen. And when you are Black in the workplace, you're going in having to put on almost a mask, right? Like, are my coworker is going to be receptive to how I'm feeling? Do I have to act like nothing's going on, but I'm infuriated and have all these emotions inside, but still have to focus on what I'm doing? And at some moments of my day, that is absolutely impossible. And others, it's like I get energized of thinking about the work that is at hand and the work that does, you know, needs to occur and needs to be done. It's why I'm so high into civic engagement, into the nonprofit sector, and some of my work outside of Kinsey. But I think overall, it's just the feeling of being infuriated that just at the thought of my existence, of me just being Black, of me being a Black woman, you know, can be a reason of why I can no longer exist at any given time. And that is such an infuriating concept to think about. And I catch myself, you know, just being mad sometimes, then other times of being extremely motivated. So it's a wave for me. It's a wave of a varying amount of emotions throughout my day and throughout my time frame. I think I'm getting now to the point where I can have some consistency of where throughout my day that I can be productive. You know, I think this is the first time, maybe today and yesterday, in like a week or actually a couple of weeks, where I wasn't like, okay, I have to step back because I am that exhausted or that beyond, you know, my point of productivity. So hopefully from here, it just continues to get better and progress, you know, ensues.
Thank you all for sharing. So Megan, I kind of want to come back to you and ask, what have you been doing to kind of help your mental health during this time? Like, have you used any strategies or talking to people? Like, what's kind of been a way that you've found just helping you, if any?
Yeah, you honestly, you want to know the honest truth. Black Twitter. Like the world of Black Twitter has been such a big key in that, because it's like, you know, these are tough times, and I, like Alan said, I do feel like we're in the midst of a turning point and a revolution that is happening that we haven't seen before. And so even through all of that, I think it's one of the strengths of the Black community that we are always able to lift each other through laughter. And we are very serious, obviously, about what is going on and being very diligent about the work that needs to occur. But at the same time, our laughter is like a strength of ours. And so that has been a saving grace for me. Honestly, just connecting with other people, being able to vent, being able to be honest. And one of the things I will say, shout out to Kinsey, because, you know, we still have to go to work, right? And we still have to be productive. So I do appreciate Kinsey Academy, you know, allowing the Black staff and students to have a platform, because that takes up a lot of your day, right? And so if you go to a place that's maybe ignoring you or not, you know, acknowledging that can be extremely tough. So I do appreciate Kinsey for allowing us to have the platform to vocalize how we feel and to work through those things. Music is always a saving grace for me, so I will maybe cut off some things and kind of dive into my library of music, and then also continue the education of myself as I educate others. So really hopping into some really dope books, and continuing to sharpen my mind in different ways I can. And then last but certainly not least, my faith, you know, of being able to really cling on to God at this moment, and strengthening my walk as well.
Awesome. And you also mentioned being out here protesting, and I think Alicia mentioned it too. So I kind of I'm gonna jump over to you, Alicia. And Alan, I don't know if you have input here as well, but I know here in Indianapolis, I've been out here protesting. Alicia, we've been pretty good protest buddies. And one thing that I really loved about the protests here were the fact that safety is at the forefront of everything, especially with the medics that we see, the people on bikes that roll ahead to make sure that the roads are like clear and safe of police for us. And I'm very thankful for the organizers and just everyone that comes together to volunteer to take these roles. And especially in the protests, one thing that I've noticed were white people that were marching with us would voluntarily go to the front of the line and link arms or make a circle around people of color just for that extra safety. And it really warms me. So my question with all of that, what else have you been doing during these protests to keep yourself safe and others?
Yeah, thank you for asking. And I think that across the board, safety, as you had mentioned, is something that is pivotal at this point. I usually, of course, lately I'm wearing a mask. And Maya, you've been amazing at bringing the the spray so that we're all keeping our germs to ourselves, right? Besides that, really just making like water, for example. Bottles of water are absolutely necessary whenever you're yelling and marching for miles. Other things that have been necessary lately, I mean, you went and got that leaf blower. So I've got the leaf blower just in case there's tear gas anywhere around. Also,
And for a hot day.
yeah, it also provides a nice breeze every now and then when it's very hot. And so as we get into the summer months, noting that people could get heat stroke. So keeping that in mind, bringing cold packs if you can. There are other really great resources that I'm happy to share in the chat specifically, but I'm not somebody who's been doing this for a long time. So I will fully acknowledge in my time to be able to step back and commend the Black women specifically that are at the front of this movement, that are leading me. I feel so safe whenever they are leading our group through Indianapolis, all over downtown and in other parts of town as well. But it sounds basic, just like how, people were saying, wash your hands at the beginning of COVID and do that well. But honestly, like wearing a mask, bringing hand sanitizer, bringing water, bringing snacks. But also I think that here locally, I am noticing that our protests, there are so many volunteers. They're walking around with snacks and water, and there are medics that are very clearly recognizable, either with a cross or with the word medic across it. And you had mentioned bikes. There are cars now following us around with medical equipment and protecting us in the street. So yeah, that's my experience lately.
It's definitely great to see like the community come together for things like this every single day too. I wanna jump over to you, Alan, with talking about like safety and protesting and the safety of our emotional health. I kind of want to hear your thoughts on how you feel in terms of safety at your job, in your workplace, and also in your region. Because I know you've recently moved, and you've been in a couple different places. So kind of want to hear what your experience has been, and how do they differ?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started my, well, in regards to working currently, I'm currently working from home. So due to COVID, we've been working from home since the middle of March. Working as a consultant, I've been placed at a oil and gas company here in the city of Houston, Texas. So even before that client had sent their employees home, our parent company, the company that I actually work for as a consultant, they told them, regardless of our contractual obligations, we are sending all of our employees to work from home. So luckily that's been something for me. Prior to that, as far as working in different regions across the country and for my emotional health, and I started my career in Jefferson City, Missouri, a small rural town, smack dab in the middle of America. And, there were different things that I had to learn. I've dealt with microaggressions, I've dealt with prejudice, I've dealt with bias before in my life. But this is a little bit different just because there wasn't a larger Black community outside of the student body that was at my school. I went to a historically Black college and university, Lincoln University out in Jefferson City, Missouri. So I was fortunate enough to have that experience where it was a huge family campus atmosphere. But outside of campus, and when you weren't with your classmates or anyone else that went to school with you, it seemed like we were in a different world almost. It was like we're back in our hometowns where, we're in the minority there again. And it's a different feeling, especially in the workplace as a young Black male that really didn't have as much development experience at that time. I'm dealing with different microaggressions throughout the workday. Trying to make my place, trying to show my value. There's always this feeling in the back of my head, like, am I doing enough? Do I belong here? Do I really have space to go out and try new things? And learning that, took me to different places. It took me back home in Indianapolis, where I moved after that career, and I finally kind of got some footing, and I finally felt like I was working in a place where I had someone that was listening to me. They weren't telling me that, hey, this isn't going to work, or they were like, well, you've considered all of your options here. Now, how can we work through some of these problems that we're having? So different things like that. There are many different stages throughout my career that I've been through. And then finally here in Houston, I've been developing for 7 years at this point. So now, I definitely feel a sense of, okay, I've proven what I can do. Now, how can I continue to maintain that and show that I do have this knowledge, that I'm, a capable employee, that I'm dependable, and that I can be accountable, and, different experiences like that. Working from home has definitely, there's not as much interaction with my coworkers now. But definitely, working in spaces where your voice is heard, I think, is the biggest thing for me. I want my ideas to be heard. I want someone to listen and actually turn their ears on. And, I think one thing I definitely struggle with is dismissiveness from, coworkers and upper management. Just, I want to be in an environment that everyone is listening to each other's, everyone's ideas are brought to the table. Because I feel like if everyone has that ability and that continues to happen, then everyone is feeling involved in the project and has a stake in it. And, that's one of my biggest things is teamwork throughout, from top to bottom.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. I want to pivot a little bit here with the time that we have left, and talk from more of a standpoint of technology. Being a tech professional, I'm a UX engineer. We have some software engineers on this panel. We have other people who work in tech on this panel. I feel like we have a very unique set of skills, and we have a very unique way of thinking, just as nature of our role, right? So kind of how, and this question is for everyone, like, how do you see yourself and like your skill set being an asset for change, for systemic change for the Black community, for our brothers and sisters out there?
I think, being new, I came from the nonprofit sector. And so I think coming into tech, in which the nonprofit sector is all about advocacy and, assisting others and standing in the gap. And so my goal is to bring some of those same skills over that I've learned being in the nonprofit sector for so long to tech, and to be a voice box. I mean, because virtually Black people, and specifically in the topic of this forum, are almost non-existent in the tech field. And that is extremely dangerous. I challenge people all the time, name an industry that tech doesn't touch, right? It's in everything. And so when you have such a powerful tool that is used across no matter the sector, no matter the industry, but there's not representation of the people, one, that's going to be using it, but then in turn, it can be weaponized against the Black community. And so I think for myself personally, it's like, spreading the message now about tech, and then what the power of it, and then making sure that it's accessible for the Black community to get into. You're coming across things like facial recognition software and AI, and things as far as just the programmings and apps on our phone. All of this is such a critical piece in how technology works and can be a detriment to the Black community, you know? And so I think for me personally is going to be making sure, you know, I stand on a soapbox and vocalize the need of Black faces in technology, as this is such a critical part in our world. And so we definitely need to increase our presence there and encourage companies to do that as well, because that's where it begins, is with them.
Yeah, I think, I 100% agree with Megan. It's because it is hard to be in a place that you feel like you do not belong because you don't see anybody else that look like you. I think as a person that is not Black, as a white person, I would say that for me, what I could do is, first of all, being an ally where I could be, because I think that is important for us to speak up when we see something, say something. And also the other thing is that I think we could use our talent is mentoring. We could mentor kids that are in high school, in middle school. We could mentor them and help them navigate through life, through whether if they want to go to college, through what they want to be doing later on. So to make sure that we teach them, and also we will have a more diverse tech community than what we have now. I would say those are some of the things that I could think of. And also, I think this was something I heard on a show that somebody mentioned was, like, one of the things we could do, we could build websites for these communities, like these nonprofits that are working on Black Lives Matter. We could definitely try to help in those places as well. And that's a talent we have. If they need to, so I work a lot on the marketing. If they need like to send a blast email, I could help them make emails and figure out how they can send emails out. That's what I would say my 2 cents is in that regard.
So what I have been doing, knowing that, as was just stated in the chat, that Indianapolis is lacking diversity in tech, right? And so what can I do to specifically support our Black and Brown students and staff, which are my family, and figuring out how to, first of all, weaponize my own privilege and mobilize my non-Black POC coworkers and white coworkers, which we have done. We have created a daily Slack channel for social justice at Kinsey Academy, of which I make sure to monitor, add actions, multiple actions on a day-to-day basis, and hold people accountable, because it is not the time for performance. I know that a lot of companies think that they are doing good things by just putting out statements. However, that is performance, and that is not helpful, and people will continue to be killed. So a way that this has helped specifically, Drayshawn Reed was killed in Indianapolis about a month ago, and we have been calling consistently for the coroner's office to release the coroner's report. They're starting to get a little frustrated with us because we are so persistent and consistent. And they did ultimately also release the names of the officer who killed him, and then one who also said very awful things while his death was live streamed. So we are part of this movement. We are part of justice happening in Indianapolis area and nationally. You know, I come from a background of education specifically and higher ed, and a Franciscan institution of higher ed, which ultimately speaks for peace and justice. And so it is in my experience of amplifying student voices that are most of the time not listened to. And it was in speech and debate experiences in the past that there was an understanding, or there's an understanding around well-intentioned white people to speak for those who don't have a voice. Every Black person has a voice. and let them use it. We white people need to be passing the mic. It is not our turn to be in the spotlight right now or ever. The end.
Yeah, and so I think one thing that, and one thing that I've struggled with, after Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, all the names, the countless names, it's like, after I get over this feeling of frustration and anger and sadness, okay, what can I do to assist? And I know I mentioned this before. So one thing that I would like to see, I think, Fatima was explaining before, is one thing that I would like to see is, and I'm looking to reach out to the Houston Black Lives Matter group to see any ways that we can assist them through technology. I think that there's a lot of groundwork done on social media. I think we can take that a step further and make sure that there's one voice, and there's leadership, and then how can we do that? And how can we expand those voices and expand that work using technology? How can we get the information to people when they need it? A lot of these events are word of mouth, or the event going viral on social media and things like that. Where can we set that up? Apps, websites. There are different ways that we can do that. So I'm excited about that work beginning and continuing that. And, I think there are plenty of places for people to chip in. There, online repositories, one way we can have people set those up. I encourage people to kind of look that up for their current regions and see how they can help those people out and expand those voices. So I think that that's one of my biggest things right now is making sure that work gets started and we get the ball rolling on that.
Yeah, these are all really great ideas. And I also think, too, in addition to reaching out to our local Black Lives Matter, I too have done that for the indie BLM, just to see like what do they need. And then also like with being out protesting, being out for 6 out of 7 days, I start noticing things and like things that are difficult, trying to find them on Instagram. The Black Lives Matter hashtag is mysteriously gone, and I can't find any recent posts from around me. So finding where they're at is really difficult. And just a lot of little things like that. And finding resources to help, finding just things that are local and safe to do. There are a lot of ways that we can help as a tech community, I think. And especially because we are so skilled at professionally brainstorming and implementing, like it's literally just a walk in the park for us, just a typical Tuesday, but I think it definitely takes a level of like just genuine care for your fellow man and wanting change and genuinely wanting to not just have equality, but to be anti-racist and to find equity. So yeah, all that just like, these are really great ideas. Thanks everyone for being here to talk during this time. I want to keep this conversation going. So I want to open up the floor now to anyone else in this panel, well, in this chat. So if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself, I want to pose this question to you as well. Like, what can you do as a member of the tech community? Like, what are you thinking is your action item from this? And just generally, how are you feeling?